Well, I'm talking with Mr. Gawne out at the DEFA HQ. You started the ball rolling about this whole business about being, can I use the word threatened in light quotations? I mean, that's what came across as, that you were trying to get rid of them, the MLCs, and in return you were telling us that you were being sort of threatened by an MLC with more questions, more paperwork for your people in charge. First of all, is that true?
Yeah, and people can use all kinds of different words for what happened. Threatened kind of implies some kind of physical violence. There was never any of that. What I was basically told, and I was sat in the room, a Tynwald members' room with several other Tynwald members, and I was told in no uncertain terms, we're going to fight fire with fire. There'll be loads of questions, there'll be loads of hostile motions. You just watch, I was told. Now, that to my mind is threatening. I don't think there's very much doubt about that. So how do you deal with that kind of thing? Do you do what I've done probably for the last 10 years and just take it on the chin and say, well, that's politics? Or do you actually expose it? Because it's silly, it's small-minded, and fight me about the issues, the principles. Talk to me about those things. No problem at all having a proper above board out in the open debate, but this kind of shady behind the scenes stuff, it's nonsense.
You told the story, yet when pushed you haven't been wanting to name the individual, because it's one person. Yeah. Are you now going to tell me this person's name?
Well, no,
because I'll tell you who it is.
But you can say who you like, but I'm not going to mention any names for the simple reason that I don't have direct evidence of anything other than that one conversation I had.
Okay, well, who had that conversation with you? Just tell us.
Well, no, I don't think I don't want to go into that.
Okay.
Because one of the problems with this is that there are the way in which this particular individual operates, and of course you I don't need to say who it is. As far as Tynwald members are concerned, everyone says, "Oh yeah, we know it's so and so, isn't it?" It's the way he's operated for quite some considerable time. I don't think there's anything that you could say that is against the sort of standards of Tynwald, but it's low. It's going round behind people's backs. It's undermining people. It's that kind of negative, nasty sort of side of politics, which I always try and avoid as far as I can. Maybe it was just a weak moment this week. Maybe because it was my birthday and I was stuck in Tynwald for 12 hours. I don't know what it was, but I just thought, no, I'm fed up with this. And actually, I want to mention to the public that this sort of thing is happening. It's not always, the things that happen and that they see in the newspapers or read or watch on the telly. It's not always what it might at first appear.
Let me help you a little bit this morning, but for the Chief Minister's briefing, which we do on Friday, Mr. Alex Downey was there. The papers were already asked him that question, because I've been going around myself. He sort of equivocated a bit, but when push came to shove, he basically said, yes, it was him, but he denies it's a threatening sort of manner, and there's procedures. If you've got a complaint about that, you should go back and go through the procedures. And really, he said it a few times, he said, put up or shut up.
And I've told you, I'm not going to go into who was responsible and all that for the reasons I've stated. Yeah. I don't think it's appropriate for me to start accusing individuals of certain things when all I have is loads of circumstantial evidence. I don't have the direct evidence that absolutely smoke and gun, your fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. But I do have very strong suspicions about certain things.
Okay. Now you're referring to these sort of anonymous letters as well, are you?
Well, there's that, but it's just the general way in which people go about their politics, which is unsavoury. It's deliberetely designed to undermine people. It's not about having open arguments and discussing things in a way, in a principled sort of way. It's about, well, so and so has done this, and what about that, and just dropping little bits of doubt into people's minds and undermining people's arguments, not actually using any sort of principled argument, just it's childish, really. It's petty, and it's not something I'm intimidated about. It's not something that, oh dear, poor Philly, what an awful sad thing this is. I just want people to know that that's the kind of nonsense that we have to deal with on a fairly regular basis in Tynwald.
Where do you go with this? I mean, you did start the ball rolling. Is it now finished as far as you're concerned, or will you be taking it further?
I hope that as a result of this, the member concerned will be a little bit more circumspect about the way he goes about things. I suspect that he'll feel as though he's being challenged by it. Certainly, I was exasperated. That's why I've reached this point. There comes a time where you just have to say, no, enough's enough. This sort of thing isn't really acceptable. We should be able to have debates about principle and the higher level elements of politics. That's what we're there for as politicians. And in a way, the very fact that we're having this interview kind of highlights one of the concerns that I have about the whole political process. We're talking about this. We're not talking about some of the more principled things or the more important issues that
Are you surprised it has caught the media's sort of attention in the way it has? And we did not expect it when you first put down the motion to get rid of MLCs?
Well, I think if we were talking about the motion, that would be fine. If that's what this interview was about, was the Tynwald motion, or the House Keys motion.
It's cause and effect, is it not?
Yeah, but that actually is quite an interesting discussion that hasn't been had, as far as I'm aware. I've had a little bit of discussion with some elements of the media, but we haven't really gone into detail why I put that motion down.
So yours, tell us.
Well, absolutely, but that, to my mind, should be of greater interest to the public than a bit of nonsense about somebody.
Yeah, but you started the nonsense.
Well, no, I didn't start the nonsense.
In the public domain, you started
it. I'm fed up with it, and I wanted to just let people know. Okay. This
We're going around in circles
silliness.
Tell us then about, that's what we can do. That's the beauty about this form. We don't cut, we don't edit. If people are sitting there still watching it, well, they're interested, right?
Yeah.
You've got their attention. We've dealt with that. Tell me about MLCs and why you really put that motion down there.
Okay, there's some simple reasons. First of all, it was nothing to do, and again, I've got a load of amendments down to the boundary. What's it called? The boundary.
Yes, you and Mr. Watson are leading the charge on that one.
Actually, my amendments, if passed, will allow the bill to do pretty much what David Anderson wants it to do at the moment. There's a lot of people saying, oh yes, the only reason he's doing this is because he's fighting for his seat and it's all about a seat disappearing in Russia.
People do think that, yes.
Well, a seat is disappearing in Russia, and yes, that is something that I feel a bit aggrieved about, bearing in mind the problem that this fix is all supposed to be designed for.
Do you agree with Mr. Watson putting his questions down?
It's about a problem in Douglas and Peel. It's not really about a problem in the South. However, I've lost that particular argument, and we move on. And what I'm moving on to is trying to make sure that we have a good, fair, democratic system. So I'm actually going to support 12 two-seat constituencies, and I've always said that I will. I don't happen to think it's the best solution. I'm sure there are better solutions, and my amendments would allow us to move from 12 two-seat constituencies at the 2016 election to, what was it, 6 four-seaters, that's right, by the 2021 election. Also, we would introduce single transferable vote, and we would require the public to be properly informed about the changes that happen in the constituencies, which I don't think has happened yet. Most people are probably blissfully unaware that there's going to be a significant change by the next election. So that's what I'm about with my amendments. As far as the LegCo reform is concerned, we have just undertaken a fairly significant reform, or begun the process of a significant reform of ministerial government. There are going to be less posts in government for members of the House of Keys and members of Tynwald. We are telling the public sector workforce that they have to work twice as hard with no increases in pay, and they're going to have to cover huge extra additional responsibilities, and there has to be radical change across the whole of the public service. but Tynwald is too precious. Oh no, we can't change Tynwald. I mean, obviously, you've got to leave Tynwald alone because it's an ancient tradition and it's been going back all these centuries. And oh no, I mean, the fact that ancient tradition has been reformed radically over the course of the last 50 years, let alone 100 years, is by the by. But over the last, say, 20 or 30 years, we haven't really done an awful lot by way of reform of Parliament. And in my view, we need to. And how do I go back to public sector workforce representatives, unions and the like, and say, yeah, well, you need to radically change. We need to cut something like 20 or 30% out of salaries and all the rest of it from you fellas, but we're not going to touch Tynwald. Tynwald's going to stay the same. So that's why I came forward with the motion which said, let's get rid of 25% of Tynwald.
And did you expect anything but what you got?
I didn't. I genuinely didn't know, but I think it was a good idea. It was something that was worth putting in people's minds. I may well come back to it next year. Certainly we'll wait and see, because Peter Carron's got a LegCo reform bill going through or coming forward shortly, and we'll see what's in there. But I may yet try again with this. I mean, yes, it was a bit out of the blue perhaps for some people, and maybe over the course of the next 12 months people might think, actually, that wasn't such a bad idea. We're going to save £400,000 in salaries.
But you both know, you and me know that there were people already thinking about, this is time to move out. MHK is getting too hot. Yeah. Let's have a little movie upstairs.
Absolutely.
For right or wrong reasons, people see that as a safe way of departing from the House of Keys.
They do, and one of the reasons this all started off was perhaps I was a bit too blunt and I didn't say, oh yes, of course, members of the Legislative Council, you're doing a wonderful job. And most of them are, in fact all of them I think are doing a good job. It's not as though they're not earning their money, they are earning their money. But the point I would put back to them is, so are a number of the staff that we've had to let go in this department. I'm going to have 25% less staff over a 6-year period, 30% less money. That's the reality of what's happening across government. So we're doing that in government departments, but for some reason we don't need to do that in Tynwald. So yeah, maybe I should have been a bit more fulsome in my praise of members of the Legislative Council and say this is not a personal attack on you, because it certainly wasn't intended to be that. But it's a genuine question being asked of all Tynwald members: can we carry on with the system that we've got? We know that there is a general desire amongst a fairly significant proportion of the public to have a directly elected Legislative Council. We know also that over the last 10 years and probably many years before that, we've failed to get
David Collister's mission, wasn't it? I mean, his only tenure was
so we failed to actually deliver on directly elected LegCo. So the next step is, well, actually get rid of LegCo altogether, create a new scrutiny committee in the Keys part of the process. The members that are going to become spare parts when we reduce the size of government down could actually focus more then on the scrutiny side. It's not actually a wildly ridiculous suggestion.
We should have had this conversation before. But anyway, it's about the media and how you react and
well,
everything.
It is, and again, we're going back to threats. I'm afraid some elements of the media probably have taken a number of fairly innocuous statements and made them seem an awful lot more exciting as a news story than perhaps they really were. But the top and the bottom of it is, if somebody threatens you and you don't say anything to anyone, the person is more likely to carry out the threat than if you do actually let people know that this is what's happening, because it's more difficult to carry out a threat if everybody knows that that's what's happening. That was why I made this thing public a few weeks ago. That's why I've highlighted it again this week, because I felt that circumstances perhaps is wholly circumstantial, I don't know, but things were starting to happen this week which seemed a bit suspicious. So there we are.
Hopefully that's given you time to explain anything. And as always, it's interesting on MTTV. After any video plays, it goes to the most popular, and we watch that. I'm sure you'll watch that to see if people are interested in this sort of story.
Yeah.
And it is always amazing what floats people's boats, isn't it?
They may well watch the first part for the scandal and the skeet and not be interested in the principle. I don't know.
But anyway, Mr. Gawne, thank you for talking to us today and putting your area of this discussion over.
My pleasure.